Calamia rolled through the Rockies over the weekend. There was a pair of comebacks in Canada as champions found their form in new ways. A volleyball student athlete, offered and spurned, seeks to spike bigotry in court. Sour Caroline, bum bum bum, another transphobe lie so good. We talked to a sports scholar who drops more tea about how more cis women than you think are against bans against trans athletes in sports. An avid runner in the UK talks about how all the anti-trans nonsense over there is affecting her and her sport. And yours truly talks about football and femmephobia. Hello again, everybody. This is Transpositions Sports. I'm Karleigh Chardonnay-Webb, and we start with some friends of the show who spent the recent weeks showing out. First, over the weekend, Colorado Trans Rockies 5-day trail race in Calamia. Not only did they take a stage win, they went out and won the whole darn thing, adding this title to completing the 6-star career major marathon circuit that they did in April. Ness Murby, Canadian Paralympic medal winner, transitioned in 2021, just missed on the Tokyo Paralympics on the comeback trail at age 40, performed at the Canadian National Track and Field Championships in the T11 classification in the discus and the javelin. In the discus, especially 4th overall at 20.86 meters, but in the javelin, after learning a new run-up just hours before, 19.57 meters, and that was enough to win the event. Veronica Ivy, two-time UCI age group Masters track cycling champ, has traded pedal strokes for golf strokes. She was part of a British Columbia provincial team that took home a national interprovincial title last weekend. Ivy says the next goal, an individual championship next year, and she's swinging pretty mean. I wouldn't bet against her. Emma Morcacho is suing Westcliff University in California in federal court, claiming her civil rights were violated when the latter rescinded an offer for an athletic scholarship following some school and league officials discovering that she's a transgender woman. Morcacho filed the suit in the United States District Court in California on August 8th, filing the case claiming violations of both Title IX and the Unruh Civil Rights Act in California. The suit alleges that the coaching staff of the women's volleyball team at the NAIA school knew that Morcacho was transgender, a fact that she claims that she disclosed to them well before the scholarship offer, which was given out in summer of 2023. She also claims that the coaches actively recruited her with knowledge and ultimately offering her that scholarship. Now, again, that scholarship was offered in July 2023 and was revoked prior to the start of play in the fall of that year. The NAIA banned trans women from their intercollegiate sports after the season in mid-2024. This week, one of the anonymous plaintiffs in the Riley Gaines lawsuit against the NCAA publicly revealed herself. Her name is Caroline Hill. She was a 400 meters and 400 hurdle specialist at the Rochester Institute of Technology, the same RIT that Sadie Schreiner attended. Oh, by the way, Hill and Schreiner were teammates in 2024 and set to be teammates in 2025. However, the NCAA ban on transgender women in sports nixed that. Nonetheless, Hill went to the New York Post this week with a riveting tale of Schreiner stole my record, Schreiner took my spot on the team, and Schreiner accosted me in the locker room. The standard Riley Gaines, Alliance Defending Freedom, talking points that have time and time again shown to be erroneous. Now, one thing to point out in all this is the lawsuit itself. The lawsuit calls for the NCAA to ban trans women from sports. That's already been done. That was done February 6th. But there's the other side of it, the petty side of it. They want any record of any trans woman who's ever competed in an NCAA competition to be erased and expunged. But this is also where there's an own goal for Hill. You see, Caroline Hill talks about how championships were taken away and honors were taken away. Caroline Hill never qualified in her 4 years at RIT for an NCAA championship. She never won an individual national or even Liberty League conference title. But she was a part of 2 conference champion 4x400 meter relay teams. So she's won a couple of championships. However, if Riley Gaines and her people, and Hill is one of her people, get their way, guess what? Hill loses all of that. She loses those accolades. Let's go to the videotape. 2024 Liberty League Championship 4x400 meter relay. Now, the opening leg of that relay was Caroline Hill, and Caroline Hill went out, got him a lead. But the second and third legs lost the lead. RIT fell back to fourth. It was up to the anchor leg. And guess who the closer was? You guessed it. 2024 NCAA All-American Sadie Schreiner. And Schreiner did her thing in proper style. Oh, by the way, they won this event at the Indoor Championships. And who was the leadoff leg of the 4x400 meter relay for RIT? Sadie Schreiner. Ms. Hill, you said that Sadie Schreiner took championships away from you. If you sign on with Riley Gaines will take 2 championships away from you. Hashtag just saying. What we're seeing in regards to Caroline Hill also dovetails into a lot of the recent things we're seeing with trans bans, and we're seeing with sex and gender verification testing. And last week we had Dr. Johanna Melnis of Versailles College on to talk about these things, and she suggested there's another voice that needs to be heard. Dr. Anna Posbergh is an assistant professor at Florida State University who has been doing a lot of research into these varied issues in regarding to inclusion in sports and the ethics surrounding the issue. And she's joining us tonight on Transpositions Sports. Dr. Anna Posbergh, welcome to Transpositions Sports. And right out of the gate, gut reaction, what's your thoughts on, for starters, the bans and this lawsuit against the NCAA? Is it superfluous at this point, given that the NCAA has banned trans women from competition?
Yeah, I mean, I think these bans, like there's just so many angles to take on it. My gut instinct is it's unnecessary, but I also think that that's actually like a wrong reaction because it justifies the transphobia that it inherently has. Because like even if it is unnecessary, it doesn't get at the deep problematics of these kinds of bans. Trans people exist. Trans people don't destroy sport. They're not destroying women's sport by any means. I think that white men have done a really good job of that, actually, not trans folks. And it just makes me so angry because there's so much energy being put into banning a tiny, very important, but tiny group that makes up college athletics. But you could be putting that energy towards, I don't know, protecting women from stalkers. And the New York Times just had a big piece come out about how these women athletes are constantly stalked at the pro level, college level, and it inhibits their performance, their lives, everything like that. You could put energy into that. You could put energy into Olympic sports. You could put energy into actually doing right by the House settlement and not eliminating your Olympic sports. There's so much more you could do than banning a small group of athletes who are just trying to live their best lives, as we all are.
Mm-hmm. And Riley Gaines has entered the chat. If you could actually sit down and talk to her, what would you say to her? Because now another college athlete, a former college athlete, I should say, has come in and said, yes, I'm a part of this lawsuit.
So actually Riley Gaines came and gave a talk on Florida State's campus this past spring, which was a really I didn't go, but I walked to and from home and I saw all the chalk endorsements of Riley Gaines on my walk home. I don't know, part of me wants to be really petty and just be like, girl, you would have finished 5th regardless of if Leah Thomas was competing. But that doesn't really do any good. And like, I guess pettiness never really gets you far, usually. Because she would have still finished 5th, even if Leah Thomas hadn't competed. There was a tie. But I would just be like, why? Like, why is this it? Like, why? I don't understand why. And I think my partner, he and I joke, like, I get really worked up about a lot of this stuff. And a lot of times it comes from a place of just not understanding. Like, I don't understand transphobia. I don't understand how people have this time and energy to focus on this like particular issue when you have a swath of issues in women's sports that are documented that you could really focus your energy behind, you could put your money behind, that you could put your lawsuits behind. I just don't understand. And so honestly, I would probably ask Riley Gaines et al. Why? Like, why? Why are you doing this? Why have you deemed this worthy of your time? Is the Fox News money really that good? Like, you could probably like Livy Dunn makes a lot of money too. There are other things that you can do with your time, energy, body. Like, why? And maybe that's not sharp enough. Maybe that's not I don't understand why. I don't understand why. There's so many better things to do with your time and energy and ways to make the world better. But Trump has already released multiple executive orders about 1 to 2% of the population who are just trying to quite literally live these days. Literally live. Why?
The main thing that you've talked about at length, sex testing, it's here.
Ugh, yeah, it is.
Starting September 1st, World Athletics says it's a one-time, once-in-a-lifetime cheek swab or blood test for every female qualifier for the World Championships. World Boxing literally fingered someone and said, you will go. We don't know what the sex testing regime is going to be, but you, Amani Khalifa, are going to go through it. First, gut reaction on sex testing and your views on it and the research that you've done on it, where you've gotten, according yourself and Johanna Mellis have talked to a lot of cisgender women who are in sport. What have they had to say?
I'll start backwards, I think. So Joanna had this amazing idea back in February because she was really fed up with the transphobia she was seeing. And so she reached out to the cisgender women on her social media and were like, what do you all think about these trans bans, the attacks on trans athletes, trans women, trans girls? Like, what are your thoughts on it? And overwhelmingly, the responses we got were these bans are unnecessary. They do a lot more harm. And we can't even say they do good because they do no good. So they just do harm. And there's other things that we need to worry about in women's and girls sports and not what someone's chromosomes are or what genitals they have. And that was overwhelmingly we got over 75 responses. Every single response pretty much fell into that camp. Some were a bit more sophisticated in how they conveyed those messaging. Some were quite explicit in what they viewed as what real problems were and why this isn't a problem. But that was kind of the overwhelming response we got was it's not a problem. There are other problems we need to deal with. This is really dangerous. And those also sum up, in my opinion, those sum up my views on sex testing too. And what's like particularly annoying to me, like a lot of folks on here, we don't have a lot of free time. Like, I'm not going to try to make the same mistake over and over again because I have better nonsense to try to take care of. Sex testing is a mistake that we are making again. We fought this for 40 plus years already. In 1991 and 1999, World Athletics and the IOC were like, we actually don't need sex testing. It causes more problems than having solutions. It doesn't indicate performance. And the people who literally founded the tests that they're using, the bar body test from the 1960s to the 1990s, and then the PCR test, both the founders of those tests have come out outright and said, this is not what it's intended for. It does no good. It means nothing for performance. Don't use my science this way. So like, I don't mean to get like worked up about it because it's not worth getting worked up over, but it kind of is actually. It's completely useless. It's nonsense. It does nothing. And all it does is tell someone that they may have a condition that they didn't know before. And there's some really interesting literature around the right to not know. In the same way, like when you go to the doctor, you have the right to not get weighed because if you don't want to know your weight, depending on what you're struggling with, you have the right to not know. And by doing this kind of bar body test or this PCR testing, this sex testing, you're forcing athletes to know a condition that maybe they don't want to know beyond all the other issues in that. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't know how else to say it. And we fought this battle before. It's like a bad tape that just like is on repeat. Like in How I Met Your Mother, that I Would Walk 1,000 Miles CD that kept playing over and over again. It's like that just won't stop playing, and it gets really annoying because you've debunked it already.
So to
Yeah.
make sure I have this right, the SRY gene test that they keep talking about, this is the same thing. They're just warming over the same test and just reusing it again.
Yes.
Just giving it a different name.
Yes. It's the exact same bullshit nonsense. Yeah. I mean, like, and that's, yeah, it's the same thing. And like, so for Lindsay Parks Piper is a phenomenal sport historian, and she wrote a great book on the history of sex testing. The bulk of chromosome testing for this chromosomal testing, they looked at bar bodies. So for about 3 decades, they did one type of chromosome testing, and at the very end, they were testing there was a PCR test looking at the SRY gene. They did that for a year, but it was the same kind of issues that they were running into: false positives, and the people who did flag positive, they weren't dominating sport. It was just a chromosomal anomaly that they happened to have, and they would fail the test and it would ruin their career, their lives. There are several athletes that researchers have talked to that have come out with their stories as well about how they failed this test, and they lost everything from their fiancés to their scholarships to their career. There have also been attempted suicides and successful unalivings as well, because of a result of these tests. And there is not a single case in which someone who tested positive for this, that they were breaking records, that they were destroying women's sports, these things that world athletics, world boxing purport they're trying to protect from by using this test. There's never been a case of someone who failed their sex test who was ruining sport. So you're actually just ruining people's lives. You're not actually protecting the sport. And to me, the real sticking point is like the scientists who created these tests have literally penned pieces that have said, do not do this with my science. It's not meant for this. And yeah, it's infuriating on so many levels.
Speaking as a woman, just take away your titles, take away everything. Just speaking as a woman, what does this say to you? That we're going back to this level of scrutiny.
That man, as a woman, I just feel, I think like invisible, basically. Like my voice isn't heard, that I am reduced to 2 letters, an XX or an XY, basically. That all the progress that was made over the last several decades in the US globally, it was for nothing. It was all for show. And ultimately, that white men don't really want to give up their power. Patriarchy won at the end of the day. And yeah, it's incredibly disappointing. It's disheartening. I every day I'm like, what is the point of what I do? Honestly, like if we're just going back multiple decades, like I really thought we could have more nuanced discussions around what it meant to be a woman. What does progress mean? How do we get progress? How do we make good policies? Like I really wanted to have more in my research, especially like more nuanced conversations, more kind of next level critical thinking conversations. And now I'm just like, I feel like fighting for the right for women to have a place in sport, how to treat women like humans, which I don't know, my grandmother fought this battle. Like they also had a life expectancy of like 40. So like what are we doing?
Now, with that in mind, let's have a piece of that conversation right here. Because there's something you talked about before we start the interview. One of the real issues, the harassment issue.
Yeah.
Be it team trainers, be it doctors, but also be it people on the internet. I mean,
Yeah.
in the WNBA, for example, someone threw a dildo on the playing floor during a game. Things like that. How does that land for you?
As a sidebar, dildos are really expensive, so I really want to know what their job is because I'd love to be able to afford dildos that I can just throw away like that. But beside that point, I just the devaluing of women is alarming. And I think what really gets me angry is like the discourse of like we're protecting women, but then you allow these issues to persist. Like, where's Trump's statement about the harassment of women? Where's Trump's statement about actual issues that are harming girls and women? It's silent. Instead, it's like twisting a reality to fit a narrative for political reasons. And what's really alarming to me too, like you want like in talking, not you, but like people who are against, I don't know, women, like you want to have a conversation about protecting girls and women, well then you go and endorse these sex tests. And at the elite level, like you said, it's a cheek swab or it's a dry blood test, which are problematic, but it takes science to check this. The trickle down effect, I think it's something that you mentioned earlier on, the trickle down effect of these high level policies at the elite level. Your youth soccer camp is not going to be able to afford a cheek swab or a dry blood test. They're going to do genital exams. That's always what they've done. That's always what they do. I believe there was a case in Canada where that's literally how they implemented a sex test was you have a daughter go into a room, probably a male volunteer or a male doctor if you're lucky to get one, because men disproportionately occupy coaching positions, volunteer and paid physician positions, athletic training positions. They disproportionately take up those positions. So your young daughter is going to be in a tent probably with some older guy, and she's going to have to take her pants off, and he's going to be able to probe around and do who knows what in this tent. This is how Larry Nasser happened. And so, like, sex testing, if the trickle down effect to me is endorsing and creating Larry Nasser situations in your youth soccer camp, at your sleepaway basketball camp, at these youth levels, literally endorsement of that.
Exit question. In your mind, what are the real issues in women's sports? Because they're saying that this is the real issue, but in your mind, somebody, you study this from an ethical perspective, you study it from the real world perspectives. In your mind, what are the real issues that need to be discussed?
So roundabout answer to your question. So part of my dissertation was interviewing folks who make these policies. Specifically, I was looking at something called protective policies, which are policies that purport to protect something, athletes, the women's category, women, girls, yada yada. And I was really interested in what the people who literally make these policies, the people in the IOC, in World Athletics, what do they? One of the questions was, what do you think historically, presently, in the future are the most pressing issues for girls and women in sport? It was verbatim a question that I asked them. Not a single one said trans girls or women, interestingly. They said things like media coverage. They said things like having more women in coaching positions. They said having things like increasing opportunities for girls and women to be in sport, having adequate facilities and locker rooms for girls and women, teaching women how to be athletic, how to be in a squat stance, how to fall, how to do different things like that, because there's a high concussion rate for girls and women, high LCL, ACL tear rate because they don't know how to be physically active. Increasing even just like mental health resources for girls and women, because patriarchy is everywhere, and being told that you're not good enough, I think, is just unfortunately part of a girl's experience. So having that kind of resource available, investing in science, and having more women in STEM positions, in leadership positions, things like that. But they never talked about trans girls and women. I interviewed men, I interviewed women, I interviewed trans people, I interviewed people who they are at the very, very top. I can't obviously give their names because of confidentiality reasons. People at the very, very top. Not a single person said trans girls or women. They said a ton of other things. They
Well,
didn't.
a follow up to that though. Why? In your mind, yeah, we've asked that question, but I'm just gut response. Why this? In your viewpoint, why was CC Telfer a big deal? Why is Leah Thomas this monster movie?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about something, my gut response is actually something that my mom said to me several months ago. So my mom is an immigrant. She's not from the US. And she came here with the American dream in mind, like wanted to find success, get out of the situation she was in. And she said to me a couple months ago, because I was explaining my research to her, she was like, Anna, I just don't really understand where the US says that they want to celebrate individualism. You can make your own path, dare to be different. She's like, but at the end of the day, all they really want is the same thing over and over again. They want conformity. They want discipline. They don't want you to be unique. They don't want you to be individual. And I think that to me, this issue, the fixation on this issue, stems back to that. Being different is not what these policymakers want. They want simplicity, they want discipline, they want conformity, they want everything to be in clean little boxes. Check F, check M. We don't want an other box. They want conformity. They don't want people to push progress. They don't want people to go outside the box. They want everyone to fit cleanly into the little two binaries that they have. And this is a really, I think, easy issue because it preys on commonsensical ideas of men are better at sports than women. Men are this, women are this, that, like that very gender sex binary. This issue preys on that commonsensical knowledge that is ingrained in us as kids, and supports their malicious and fallacious arguments, erroneous arguments, in my opinion. So yeah, I guess that's what pops in my head is my mom's astute observation about what the US says that they care about, but what actually we see in policies and in our culture.
Now, these are viewpoints that most people haven't heard. And Dr. Anna Posbergh, thank you for being on Transposition Sports to give them to us and I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to want you back. We're definitely going to want you back because
thank you.
These are viewpoints we don't get very often, but need to be said.
I also want to say, while I'm still on the air, Karleigh, your work is amazing. I first heard you on the End of Sport podcast, and I actually episode, I actually assigned I was at the University of Maryland at the time. I actually assigned your episode to students to listen to because I thought you're so fresh. They were so clearly given, and I still question it, but I don't think that I was able to say those things in the way that I needed to, and you said them perfectly. And your coverage and your journalism and everything you do, truly deserves more than a shout out. But
thank you. I'm blushing right now.
It's all true though. So thank you so much for everything you do in this space.
When we return to Transposition Sports, proof that when you contact us as a viewer, we will give you a space. Someone who wrote into us from the UK wanted to talk about how the Supreme Court decision was affecting her as an avid runner. And we get her story next. And we talk about two sassy young men who are Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders and why certain so-called manly men are a little hot under the collar about it. I'm Karleigh Chardonnay-Webb. This is Transposition Sports. Stay with us. But this is another example of how you just hate us. You just hate us. You just hate us, say Riley. You know you're really dumb. Still upset that a trans woman won. It's been 3 years, girl. Ain't you tired? Leah is a champion. You're still a whiner.
Meow, yeah, 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 meow, yeah. Wait a minute, Kitty's gonna get it. 4 paws in when I'm standing on business. I'm the kitten, all the rhinos spitting. This show can handle all the cuteness that I'm getting. I'm not a beginner, no, I'm a winner. Hurry up, Karleigh, go get me my dinner. If Karleigh can spit rhymes, so can I. I'm Kirby the Cat. We'll be back.
Let's take a look at Protest Watch, brought to you by
Karens Against Women's Sports. Because we don't really care about women's sports. We're here for the transphobia.
USA Fencing Event, College Park, Maryland. Stephanie Turner is set to meet Redmond Sullivan in a pool match, and Turner decided to forfeit the match on bended knee because Sullivan is a trans woman, and even though she's eligible to compete, Turner feels it's unfair. Now, check out the Darvo effect going here. Turner's the transphobe, but she's being cast as the victim, and Sullivan's being cast as the villain.
Refusing defense because this person isn't a man and I am a woman and this is a women's tournament and I refuse to defense on principle.
Oh, Stephanie, I heard about the check you got from the transphobes. Oh, I'm not mad at you. Girl, get your coins. I ain't mad at you, but I will sing about your ass. Trans-identified in your spaces. To you we're men and we're all the same. You get all up in our faces. And you hate that we play a game. You don't think trans folks are human. You'd love to line us up against the wall. And now they offered you some money to make sure that you hate us all. You're a professional transphobe. Transphobe for money. Hate all trans, that's what you do. You're a professional transphobe. Transphobe for money. Wiley Gaines will employ you.
I interrupt Transposition Sports because I'm cute and I can't. And for this message from the angry gay grandpa. You don't pay me enough for this, Karleigh.
So maybe I'll start a little bit softer.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine.
Dad?
Before you say anything, I just want to apologize for what I said this morning. I've been doing a lot of thinking. If you want to change your name, if you want to wear a dress.
It's a skirt, Dad.
Skirt? I don't know the kind of support you need, but let's get you some for all this transgender stuff.
Wait. Are you serious? Dad, what is this?
Oh, this is me supporting you. This is me saying I love you. This is me not losing you.
Love you, Dad.
Love you. Holly.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
And welcome back to Transposition Sports. I'm Karleigh Chardonnay-Webb, and we've talked a lot about how the trans bans are hitting athletes, are hitting governing bodies, but there's also a trickle-down effect from what you're seeing, be it from World Rugby or World Athletics or World Boxing, the matters of sex testing, the bans at the NCAA level, and what we've seen elsewhere in the world. But how does this affect the everyday weekend trans person who just wants to get out and play a sport? Well, somebody approached us recently and wanted to come on the show to talk about that. Dani Maskit lives in London. She is an avid runner, a trans woman participating in sport and living her life in the place that some call Turf Island, and continuing to be in sport even after the ridiculous UK Supreme Court decision in April. Dani Maskit is with us now. Dani, welcome to Transposition Sports. And did you get a run-in today?
Yeah, I did get a run in today. It was really hot, but I got out and I toughed through it anyway.
Well, as an avid runner, person who participates in road races, has that addiction. Same here. What's been the temperature being a trans woman in the UK, especially post April 16th and the Supreme Court decision?
So I think like in some ways, like not a lot has changed in my life because I'm not trying to play football. So if I was playing football, I would have been thrown off my team. Um, as a runner, I guess like it's not so much the things in my daily life that I'm running against. It's just that when I go and start looking at race registration websites, I'm starting to see weird things crop up. Like I literally was just updating my info on this series of really amazing trail races out in like these beautiful places all over the UK, and I went in and I noticed that there was a little thing on the site just under gender where there was a button you could click which said transgender. I was like, oh, I'm just curious, what's in that? And I opened it, and there's a statement saying, "Oh, we totally welcome athletes, but if you are transgender, we won't actually include you in the like. You'll be in the main results, but if somebody sorts the results by gender, you won't show up, and you won't be in the rankings. So so even if you happen to be someone fast enough to get a podium place, or you're in an age group where there's only a few women running, you won't actually be recognized as being on the podium." And then there's a little checkbox where you can certify, "I am transgender." And you might think, is that okay? Are they allowed to ask that? And the answer is no. They're actually not even allowed to ask that. And if they have a compelling reason to ask it, there's a whole bunch of data protection things that they are supposed to have in place. And as far as I can tell, they don't have any of those. And it's really clear that their policy is something which, if I go and do one of those races, and it happens to be one of the years where there's only 2 other women in my age group, I would get outed if anybody actually looked in the results. And that's completely illegal. And I wrote to the race director and got a note back saying, "Oh, well, in a few months, we're going to be posting something about not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it." And I was just like, I don't care why you're doing it. It's illegal. Stop doing it. And I wrote back and pretty much laid out the legal case against them, and they just haven't responded.
So what race was this for?
So it's put on by the race promoter is this company called Endurance Life, and they have this whole series of races called the Coastal Trail Series, and I've done a bunch of them, and they're really great races. Like I've had like really great days out doing their races, but I'm not going to do them anymore because it's pretty clear that they don't want me there.
Now, what's your thoughts on some of the things that you're seeing in the landscape in regards to sports now? I mean, what you've seen, a number of governing bodies in the UK have already come out and say have changed rules right, left, up, down, and center. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing and how this is trickling down to grassroots sports?
Well, so I think one of the things which I've been following for a while, as I think you know, and which actually predates the Supreme Court case, is the London Marathon, which is this really bizarre thing. There's a program, and this is something like 2/3 of the major marathons have some way where if you're a fast recreational runner, you don't have to go through the lottery, which is great because getting lottery places for these races, like London gets like 1 million people applying for the race, and there's like 30,000 places. So your chances, like I've put my name into the lottery like 10 years, and I've gotten a place once. And that was the very first year I've done it. I haven't been able to run the race in over a decade. So I thought, well, I'm close to the point where I should be able to qualify for London's version that's called Good for Age. And I went and looked, and if you look at Chicago, you look at New York, you look at Boston, when you see qualifying times, they've got men's, they've got women's, they've got non-binary, they've got a statement that you can choose which category you're going to be in.
Right.
You get London, the first thing you notice is there's men and women.
Right. Even though
There's
there is a
nothing-
non-binary division now in London, there
Well,
has been
see,
for a few years.
So I would not say that there's a non-binary division. I would say that there's a checkbox on the entry into the mass ballot where you can be one of those million people where you can say, oh, I'm non-binary. And then when the results are there, I think maybe you can filter to see just the non-binary athletes. But when you're on the starting line of the race, everybody thinks, well, it's a race. So theoretically, if I have a magical day, maybe I could magically win a prize today.
First, am I allowed as a trans woman to participate? And secondly, if I am allowed to participate, why am I not allowed to compete?
Well, okay, so it says men and women. So I'm a woman. So if I can run the time, I can get a good for age place, right? And now things get really, really murky because the London Marathon race director, Hugh Brasher, has publicly made statements saying that the London Good for Age program is an elite category. It's an elite competition, and therefore it is under World Athletics rules, and to be a woman, to qualify for Good for Age, you need to be meeting the eligibility standards of an elite woman, which, as you may or may not know, one of those obligations is you need to have signed and provided an affidavit that you went through female puberty. And so you might ask,
yes, the current World Athletics policy now.
Right. So I just put out an ask on social media. I mean, I have friends who I could have just bothered and said, women who had Good for Age places this year, did you have to provide an affidavit that you went through female puberty? No, we didn't. There was nothing. We just signed up, got a Good for Age place. And then I actually asked London Marathon, I said, so how do you verify that people are women? And they said, oh, well, you just sign up, but if there's a question about you, then we would investigate. So a question which I think needs to be asked of London is, what makes this an elite competition? Because actually, there's nothing on the website about this. I've been in the London running scene for over a decade. Everybody I've talked to about this, and I said, oh, Good for Ages, they say it's elite. They roll their eyes. They say, what are you talking about? That's not an elite competition. Yeah, I mean, they're good athletes, but a 25-year-old woman running a 3:30 marathon, yeah, that's great. It's a fabulous accomplishment, but that's not
But it's not Sifan Hassan.
Yeah. So you look at like the start of London, you have the true elite race. You have this thing, the championship race, because they actually do the UK championship as part of London Marathon. Right. And to get a championship entry, I'm pretty sure for a man you need to run a sub 2:45, and for a woman you need to run a sub 3:15. And there might be some age grading on that, there might not be. But these are people who are, they're club runners, they're people who are potentially people that will develop into being elite runners in their careers. And then there's Good for Age, but Good for Age actually just gets you a place in the mass race. So how is that elite? And the answer is it's elite because Hugh Brasher says it's elite. Why does Hugh Brasher say it's elite? It's a good question. I emailed Hugh Brasher and asked him that very question. And I said to him, well, what makes this elite? And he said, well, we have these age group prizes. And so this is trying to get people in to foster competition for the age group prizes. And I said, oh, really? Because I looked through your numbers and you have age group prizes in age groups where you only had 3 or 4 competitors. Because as you start to get into the older groups, you have Good for Age qualifications for, I think, 10 different age bands, but you only give age group prizes for 8 of them. And as far as I know, there's no requirement that you be a UK resident to win an age group prize, but the Good for Age is only age group. So the story of this is for the age group prizes doesn't really hold up very well when you start to look into the data. But more to the point, so what? What are the age group prizes? I'm assuming it's a statue. It's worth, I don't know, 10 pounds, 20 pounds. So I sent you the excerpt from the World Athletics Rules, which says in a mass race, race directors are supposed to interpret the competition rules liberally. And unless there are substantial prizes being given. And I'll point out that
big cash money.
Yeah. So you know, at New York Marathon, like the New York Roadrunners, at least in past years, have come up with some number of thousands of dollars in prize money for the non-binary competition, which is also run theoretically. You know, New York Marathon is also under World Athletics rules. So they're giving something way more valuable than what London is giving, but they're doing it for non-binary athletes. So the claim that this is under World Athletics rules, it actually looks like it's in violation of World Athletics rules. And you had a really interesting response when I raised this with him. His response was, the people who win those prizes, they have great sentimental attachment to the prizes or something like that. It's like it means a lot to people to win the prizes. Oh, and by the way, neither me nor anybody at London Marathon will answer any more of your questions about that, which I don't know about your journalistic instincts, but to me that kind of screams cover up.
Park run.
This
is non-competitive.
Yes.
But give me your view. Why is this a thing? Why? How did this non-competitive Saturday fun run running through some park somewhere in London or Birmingham or Leeds, wherever, how this become the gender critical thing?
Well, so the thing is, park run isn't. Park run is something that, and I always like to put gender critical in quotes because honestly, first of all, these people aren't talking about gender; they're talking about sex. Which is different. They're related, but they're not the same thing. And they're using the term critical. And as I said, I'm actually publishing philosophy in the field of theory, where critical has a really specific meaning. And to say that you're critical means, for example, that you can read Judith Butler and say something intelligent about what Judith Butler has to say. So these people, they say that they're gender critical, but that's just them puffing themselves up because they don't demonstrate the actual intellectual rigor to be critical of anything. But they hate park run because park run is totally inclusive. Park run is you tell us you're a woman, we'll change your registration, your magic, poof, you're a woman. Like you can register as whoever you feel you are for park run. Park run is this beautiful, pure recreational activity, which is just about getting more people off their couches outside being healthy. And why anybody wants to mess with that is completely beyond me. There's literally nothing at stake. Park run is you show up, you run, you're happy. You look at your results and you compare yourself to yourself in the past.
Gut reaction. Do you feel there's an eradication campaign?
Yes, there is a bunch of people who are looking for every possible way to misinterpret what the Supreme Court decision actually said. And a bunch of those people are in our so-called Equality and Human Rights Commission, which at this point has been taken over by what I would personally classify as a hate group. And they're just looking for every possible way to force people like me to actually just stay on our couches and never be seen in public anywhere. And I don't see any way that you can say that a woman is biologically determined at birth by somebody looking at their genitals leaves space for my gender transition to be protected, because they're essentially saying, well, we'll accept that you're not a man, but you're not a woman. You're some sort of third thing, which the European Court of Human Rights has already said you're not allowed to do.
Coming to the home stretch, because
Yeah.
this is we don't hear a lot of views like this. I mean, no, seriously. In British media, you don't hear this.
No.
You don't hear this.
I offered to write something for The Guardian. They weren't interested.
Now, one thing, the FA recently had a rule. We know what the FA did with women, but now what they're doing with men. Trans men have to say, I am a woman. Philosophically, how much nonsense is it?
Oh, it's like through the looking glass. It's Alice in Wonderland completely. I mean, how is that possibly respecting gender transition? First question. Well, it's obviously not. Second thing, and the thing which weirdly the right-wing press, which supposedly cares about things like rules and government, has been eerily silent about, is that the way the system works here, it's not like America, where the court can effectively make law. Right? Here, what the court can do is they can say, well, this is how we're going to interpret this thing, and it's up to Parliament to figure out how to turn this into guidance or legislation. So even though the Supreme Court decision came down in April, the law has not changed. So everybody's running around putting things in, like saying, oh, well, we're going to ban trans women from sport. We're going to ask trans men to out themselves and to compete as a gender which is not their assigned. It's like, well, you didn't do that a year ago because you knew it was illegal a year ago. It's just as illegal today. And and you might win the court case today, but it's still heinous. But pretty much anything, and this is where there's a big raging debate here. But the European human rights laws, which the UK is bound by, and while the right wing is rattling their sabers about pulling out of the Human Rights Convention, if they do that, it breaks the Good Friday Agreement. And so that breaks the Brexit agreement. So there's a whole can of worms, which I'm pretty sure they're not going to really open. But asking people, and this comes back to that trail race, asking people to out themselves is a violation of your personal privacy. It's a violation of your dignity. It is a fundamental violation of your human rights. And the FA should be deeply, deeply ashamed of themselves.
Exit question. From a personal standpoint, not just as Dani Maskit person, and Dani Maskit the avid runner. How does this hit you? How does this emotionally, spiritually land for you? And at the same time, what keeps you wanting to run and wanting to sign up for a race, even in these times which are uncertain?
It's really horrible. I mean, it's awful to feel like things are being taken away, because, like, these races which I have all these great memories of, I look at it and I'm just like, I just don't feel that I would be willing to do that race. And because I'm part of the London running community, so many of my friends are so passionate and so engaged with London Marathon. And while I respect and appreciate that, the London Marathon, like the organizing people, they're actually supportive of the trans community in a bunch of ways, but I'm not willing to show up to cheer and support even my friends at a race which is openly transphobic. So I feel like I'm constantly being pulled by this tension between personal loyalties and my friends doing something which I kind of wish they wouldn't, but I don't feel like I feel like it would be rude to ask them to not do it because it means so much to them. And just because it's been taken away from me, I don't want to take it away from them also.
Well, like I said up top, it's good to have the voices of the people who are just participating, competing, getting out there. And that's something we don't get enough. And the Fourth Estate should do it more. Dani, thank you for being on Transposition Sports, and thank you for telling your side of the story as an athlete, as a trans person, as a person who just loves the sport and loves sports.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed this.
Finally tonight, are you ready for some football? I am. College games starting in a week. NFL, just weeks away from getting the season going again. But it seems that certain fans of the Minnesota Vikings are less worried about the black and blue division and more worried about two guys named Louis Kahn and Blaze Sheik. Now, they were the two male cheerleaders for the Minnesota Vikings who made a slamming debut at their preseason opener over the weekend. And I got to give these guys something. They had the moves, they had the style, and check out the weapons grade Sassatonium. You know something? They said that they were going to do the same things that every other cheerleader does, right down to the moves and the pom-poms. They did, and I'm here for it. But of course, some people just got to have an issue with it. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. It's so much turn of the integration. We don't want the black girl in our all-white cheerleading squad circa 1971 energy, or more recently, we don't want the trans girl in our high school squad energy, and more recently, we don't want the Justine Lindsay on the Carolina Panthers sideline energy. This stuff isn't new, and think about it. If you have a problem with men being cheerleaders, you haven't watched a lot of football, haven't you? Come on. College game, high school game, you got male cheerleaders. But this is the other part of that. We're okay with a certain thing as long as it's the, quote, right kind of thing. As long as that dude's holding up the girl with the pom-poms, showing his strength, and maybe an occasional yell and cheer, as long as it's deep-throated and sounds that right amount of MAGA masculinity, we're here for it. But these two didn't give you that, and that is the issue. What we're talking about here is homophobia's ratchet cousin, femmephobia. And that's what it is. We're okay until there's femininity in the chat, especially in a place where it's supposed to be all masculine all the time. And honestly, it's a little tired. The fact is, these two guys were on that sideline, working it up, shaking it up like dice. They were doing it with style. And some of you have a problem with that, and you need to unpack why that is. To the haters, chill out. Enjoy the season. To the Minnesota Vikings, good on you. I like the fact that these guys weren't cropped out the videos. You know, some teams tried to hide their male cheerleaders. You've had 18 among 7 NFL teams. To the television networks, when you cover a Vikings game, don't crop these guys out. If you cut to the cheerleaders, you can cut to them too once in a while. And Louis, Blaze, fellas, eat and leave no crumbs. For Transposition Sports, I'm Karleigh Chardonnay Webb.